right, so we're back. The news is back. We took a break last week. Wait, did we take a 2-week break or 1 week break? I can't remember.
2 week break.
Was it 2 weeks off?
Yeah.
Because we had the May holidays. No, wait a minute. Did we record after the May holiday?
The last recording was on May the 4th.
Wow, has it been that long? We took 2 weeks off.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, after our long and extended break, here we are going into the end of May. We're back. I'm here with Josh and Dr. Mike.
Hello.
A few headlines from this week. A lot of interesting headlines, actually, this week. Some good stuff. I don't know where to start. How about just with the order of the tabs that I have open on my computer here? We're going to start with a weird story. Funny story. A woman in the UK, a Polish woman in the UK, her name is Anita Jarzyna. She was fired from her job for using offensive language and calling people names, ethnically, racially based names. And the reason we're mentioning it here on our news podcast is because her defense, when she was fired for calling somebody some really nasty names, her defense, including, I'll give you one name, so hide the children from the room. One of the terms she used to describe one of her fellow coworkers was gypsy cunt. She called somebody a gypsy cunt. And when she was fired for this, understandably, her defense in front of some kind of labor tribunal council, whatever, was that back in Poland, this is okay. This is, culturally for her, it was normal and, acceptable to call somebody a gypsy cunt.
She's not from Krakow. She's from Ulster, I think. I don't know what they do up there.
Maybe in Ulster, yeah. So in Poland, this is okay. So for her, it was like, why are you firing me? What's this? Perfectly normal, right? These are my cultural norms. But Dr. Mike, the judge found in her favor, strangely enough, but not for the reasons that you might expect.
Yes, the judge, it wasn't an issue of, cultural acceptance or anything like that. The judge basically said that the company that fired her hadn't followed proper procedures when it came to appealing and the step-by-step bureaucracy of firing her. So that's why she won her court case. I think she got like £3,000, which was like, a month of back pay plus like expensive and costs and stuff like that. So not like a huge amount of money, but technically she won, but not for the reasons that the article that we were reading.
Very interesting defense.
Poland, this is okay.
And I was thinking about it, and when it comes to offensive language, name calling, that kind of stuff, something that would be acceptable here that is clearly unacceptable someplace else. I couldn't think of anything. Anybody? Josh, Dr. Mike?
There are different cultural norms.
I think we all have, but when it comes to this, I think we're all on the same page.
Yeah, you definitely can't call anybody in Poland, Cygańska chipa, and that's considered, that's okay. It's like, hello, how are you doing? Oh, hello, how are you doing, you Cygańska chipa?
No, we pretty much have the same cultural norms when it comes to, again, name calling and.
Well, of course, there's this kind of yawning gulf of difference between what you can kind of comfortably say with your closest pals in relative privacy and what what is considered acceptable on state media or something like that. Isn't it?
Well, I was thinking in terms of like. Okay, in Poland, for example, when it comes to where and how you can park a car, okay, absolutely. We are in a different universe than the UK. When it comes to, respecting a queue of people, absolutely, we are a different planet. But when it comes to calling people, nasty names, and getting fired for it, I think, we're pretty much on the same page as the British. So if anyone out there knows of Ulster or someplace else where it's okay to call somebody these names and you wouldn't suffer any social or legal consequences for it, please let us know.
They didn't actually, nowhere in the article, which was really quite an amusing read for a vast number of reasons, they didn't actually establish whether or not the shall we say, injured party was of Romani descent, although she did have a Eastern European sounding surname.
But calling somebody, Dr. Mike, you're our token Polish person here, you should know, referring to somebody as a gypsy or using gypsy as an adjective to describe something, this is not a flattering complimentary.
It really depends on the context. If you use it just to describe, that this person is of that nationality or group, it's completely fine. It's how it was in the UK. They want to say like travelers or something like that. So they use like these weird, sterile, funny words. And Poland, they'll just say, oh, not Cyganka. And they don't mean anything by like, oh, it's a gypsy. And apparently I found out a few years ago that just using the term gypsy in lots of English-speaking countries is considered a little, you shouldn't be doing that. In Poland, it's completely fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure who decided and when that we shouldn't be doing that. I mean, maybe it was the kind of representatives of the Roma saying we kind of, is it the same kind of tedious political blah blah blah, like the people who lived in America for a really long time, who have been quite happy being known as Indians or Red Indians, have now got to put up with the term Native American.
It's like in Poland, when you use the word like Roman or whatever like that, it just sounds odd and sterile and weird. I don't know, maybe people now in like under 22 years old, something like that, consider that normal, but for most people it just sounds very artificial and kind of inhumane to use that kind of terminology, even if that's technically correct.
Okay, gypsy cunts, let's move on here. Let's talk about Zakrzówek. Zakrzówek, if you live here in Krakow, you know what it is. It is a mine, I think, a quarry, I should say, a quarry. Limestone, I guess. Yeah. Limestone you need to make cement, right? That's what limestone is for. Anyway, a large quarry that was flooded intentionally in the early 90s turned into a kind of like a reservoir. And it became a summertime kind of, destination to beat the heat. People would go there, dive in the water. The problem is that the quarry, the surrounding territory around the quarry and under the water surface itself, not really visitor friendly. Some of the walls of the quarry are quite high. I mean, 10 meters or more high. There are rocks everywhere, sharp rocks everywhere. Under the water surface, there are, old refrigerators and iron bed frames and, various sharp, pointy things. And if you Google Zakrzówek, you'll notice that a good portion of the stories have to do with fatalities, deaths that have taken place there over the years. On average, there's at least a death a year at Zakrzówek, usually from people walking along the edge and falling in and suffering, falling on the sharp rocks or drowning, whatnot.
Just diving into it. Yeah.
Diving into a place where you shouldn't dive. And on May 7th, 2 weeks ago, unfortunately, someone else was killed there. A 20-year-old woman died after falling from the edge.
I mean, she was hospitalized. They kept her on life support for a while.
Yeah, she didn't die at the scene. Yeah, she was taken to the hospital where she died later. And this is renewed an argument or a discussion, I should say, that takes place every time a fatality occurs at Zakrzówek. And that's, what should the city do? It always, the finger's always pointing at the city. There should be fences there. There should be some kind of measure to keep people away. I guess it makes sense, but at the same time, Dr. Mike, there are no number of fences that are going to keep people away from the edge of the quarry.
I mean, exactly. What is the city supposed to do? They've put up fences. They've said it's illegal to go there. And, well, people still, either tear down the fences, jump the fences, spend time there, go into the water in the summertime when it's hot. Everybody enjoys it, especially in the middle of the city. It's a beautiful area. What, is the city supposed to put up, 50-foot walls and armed guards every 10 feet? That's basically what they would need to do to prevent any type of tragedy from happening. There are clear signs and fences there saying, like, don't go here, it's dangerous, it's illegal, don't do this. People still go there, and at a certain point you have to say, it's like, yeah, you're personally responsible for your actions.
Well, look, I mean, I don't want to, well, I am going to sound heartless here, but it seems to me that, there are, vast numbers of people visit the site throughout the summer months every year. I'm sorry, but one fatality a year, as tragic as that is, doesn't sound like a particularly poor statistic. And I'm not sure that you could have all the fences that there are.
Paraplegics as well along the way.
Well, okay, but yeah, all right. So if we include injuries as well, but I mean, yeah, there doesn't seem to be. You don't have figures for the number of people who are injured. But I mean, how much a difference is? I mean, even if you have a massive fence, how much difference is it going to make?
Well, staying with the topic of Zakrzówek, because, as Dr. Mike says, because it's basically impossible to keep people away, and because it is kind of Krakow's version of the beach in some ways, tons of people go there every year, and there's always been some kind of pressure on the city government to do something to make it as safe and acceptable and kind of like a normal mainstream destination. And finally, this year, actually this month, I think the opening was... official opening is this week. I've lost the tab here, but anyway, they've turned it into a proper. What would you call it?
Lido.
A what?
A Lido.
A Lido.
Yeah.
It's like a floating deck, and I think some floating pools as well. Yeah. It's going to kind of formalize what people have always been doing, but to give them like a proper, safe way to do it. Zakrzówek is going to be a huge destination, even more so than it was before. You can easily find the pictures online of what's there waiting for people. Actually, in fairness, it's quite nice. Dr. Mike, are you going to be among the 25 trillion people that are expected to go every weekend?
Not every weekend. I might go there once or twice just out of curiosity. I mean, it is a beautiful area. It's like green and lush. And then you have what's left of the rock quarry, so there's like a limestone wall.
And also, sorry, just to add one thing to interrupt, it's very accessible as well. It's not like way out there. It's actually strangely close to the center of town.
It's basically in the center of town. That's why
it's like 10 minutes walk from here.
You can get there by tram. I mean, come on, it's that close. Yeah.
And they're also supposed to have walkways there with like scenic overlooks to look at the actual body of water from above. You have to remember, limestone. So you have like it's like the cliffs of Dover. So you have these like green on top.
Let's be careful with the comparisons to the cliffs of Dover.
Green on top, like sheer white walls, and then like this aquamarine water. At the bottom.
The water looks very nice because of I guess the white rocks underneath it all.
And you have to remember, like the water is there quite deep because this isn't like a natural body of water that's weathered away. It was a big hole in the ground that was filled up. That's why a lot of people don't realize. They jump in, and they might hit rocks that just had fallen off during that winter from the wall, a few months ago.
Yeah, it changes, yeah.
So it changes, and the water looks beautiful and crystal clear, but you don't realize, I used to jump into this spot every year for the last 5 years, and then this year there's a rock there that I didn't realize.
Careful, yeah.
So much for my skull.
I have a thing with crowds, and so I don't know if I'm gonna make the trip, because the last time I went to one of the public pools, I think there are 3 public pools in Krakow. One of them is it's called Maczkiewicze on the north side of town. I was there 2 summers ago. And if you stood on the edge of the pool and looked in, you could be forgiven for not being completely convinced it was a pool because you couldn't see the surface of the water. It's just, densely packed people. You could hear the splashing of water, but you couldn't always see the water. So in a court of law, you could testify truthfully that you're not sure it was a pool, if it was a pool or not. And I think it's going to be the same down there. So I think I'm going to take a pass, but...
I mean, the problem is, they might introduce some kind of fees or costs to make it more expensive so less people show up there. Then more people will use the illegal access.
They'll just go around the other way, yes.
That's the whole point of why they introduced the legal aspect of it.
Well, there's Crispinov, I suppose, as a comparison, isn't there?
Everybody hates Crispinov. I'd like it. Yeah, sure. It's
or Bagre. Bagre is a big...
Oh, and that's been kind of developed, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's true. I haven't been to Crispinov in ages, but Bagre is actually nice enough now. They've made an effort. They've dressed it up a little bit, and it's pretty cool.
For me, Crispinov is fun. It's a water hole. It's maintained and clean. They've got bathrooms there and places to eat. It's not perfect, but considering that we're in 600 kilometers from the water, I'm happy with that.
Let's move on to another story about a massive, massive building you may have noticed if you pass by Rondo Zakrzówek from time to time, right next to the tall building they call, what's it called, Blanquita?
The blue, sky blue tower,
the big Krakow's big blue skyscraper on Rondo Zakrzówek. Right next door, almost finished, ready to open, is a private dormitory for students. They're shooting for an opening in September, of course, to coincide with the beginning of the academic year. We've spoken previously about private dormitories on our show, about the one in Zabłocza and Romanowice has a name that I've forgotten. Anyway, right across the street from Mayor Majchrowski's university.
Yeah.
The name of which I always forget. What's it called, Dr.
Fritz something. Yeah.
Fritz something, right across the street. Anyway, this will be the second huge mega private dormitory. Go to the website. It's called Student Depot. StudentDepot.pl.
This doesn't sound like a place where students go to live. It sounds like a place where
they get dropped off.
A student. Yeah. Where do I pick one up?
They're all in boxes and stuff. Yeah. StudentDepot.pl. You get an idea of what it's all about. The usual, very nice amenities, nice rooms, cultural things, events. It's a lifestyle is the way they promote it. And Dr. Mike Hogan, we talked about this before about how seems to be the new model going forward. More and more people have the money to do this. The days of this idea of every student being super poor and living on the edge of starvation all the time, maybe not exactly accurate anymore. Plenty of people have money for this. But you and I have always been curious about why this model hasn't kind of transferred to, let's call it the civilian market, the non-students of renting an apartment that you don't, it's rental. It's the same idea, but for regular people and not students.
Exactly. It's like there are a lot of places in Krakow where you can rent apartments, but only the really expensive ones have like a concierge, a gym and stuff like that. And you're paying through the nose for it. And here, like, I'm not saying these dorms are cheap, but like they're starting at like 1,500 zlotys, some version of it.
Yeah, it's not so bad, actually. Yeah,
it's not crazy, especially considering the location. And with that, you get your own little room with everything you need: a kitchenette, a bathroom, a shower,
security. There's a gym,
and I'm like, I'd like to be able to rent
workspaces, chill zones, because being a student is so stressful that you need chill zones.
If you want somebody to spend the night, it's an extra 25 zlotys.
What?
Yes.
I missed that.
I read that. You can have guests up to 10 p.m.
Oh, in quotation marks, guests. Okay.
But after 10 p.m., there's a 25 zloty fee for, the cost of utilities and stuff like that. It's like, it's like the one-night stands going to cost.
If you know what I mean. Wink, wink. Okay.
Though I remember, like, back in the day, you went to a student dorm, there was, like, an angry old lady at the window. Maybe she would notice you coming in. Yeah. Maybe she wouldn't.
I mean, I heard, yes.
I heard, yeah. And if they noticed you, all you have to do is just leave an ID in, like, right. Which room are you going to? Hey, honey, what's your room again? Yeah. And just, like, you stick ID in that room, and on the way out, you pick it out.
Sounds like a guy who's been there many times, who knows the routine. 25 zloty is not so bad, but so private dormitories, I doubt this will be the last. It's a huge building as well. Like you said, a very good location too. But again, I just wonder why there isn't something like this for people who are not students who want to rent an apartment, a nice place, maybe short term, maybe long term. Whereas the rental market here is very fractured. You deal with individual owners typically, and there's really no huge building where everybody there is a renter. It's just, like in most buildings, it's a mix of owners and renters, and it's just, I don't know. I just wonder if it's going to cross over.
I'm surprised. I mean, to get a place in the center of town under 2,000 zlotys, that's decent, as in quality-wise.
Very hard.
It's hard. And you can get, and now, for the students, you have an apartment like that with all these extra amenities and, services. It's like, wait, this is actually a pretty good damn deal. I'm thinking that this works for them because they have a business plan where they know they'll bring in students. They have customers every year. They can throw them. I'm pretty sure there are so many terms and conditions that if their student makes any problems, they can throw them out like that. While in a regular apartment, if you have a tenant and they do something wrong and they're not paying you, then you're stuck with them.
Well, interesting to see how it's going to be, but I think it's because of the scale. The building is so big that it works financially because of the number of people they're going to have on board there. But looks like a nice place.
I wonder what they consider good Wi-Fi, though, because there's a saying that Wi-Fi is included or fast internet
Actually, it really is an excellent location, isn't it? Right there on the Rondo.
You can get to anywhere. You're basically walking distance to the square, 10 minutes, along those lines.
Let's move on to something else here. Let's talk about Good Lood. Now, any mention of Good Lood on our program has to come with an explanation of the fact that we have discussed many times, especially with our friend Jonathan Ornstein, about how Good Lood just might be the single most overrated food product on the planet, in our opinion, our modest opinion. We still agree on that? Anybody changed opinions on Good Lood?
Well, I don't really eat ice cream, but I mean, if we go back far enough, before Good Lood, there was the ice cream place on Starovishna.
Yeah, still there, where people wait in line for 9 hours for unknown reasons.
Didn't we not kind of pick on this whole, why do people queue for ages for this? It was that ice cream originally, and now they've been usurped by Good Lood, who are equally unimpressive.
There are Good Lood zombies who will swear to you that it's the best thing ever. I think there's something wrong with them. But anyway, Dr. Mike, Good Lood in the news for interesting kind of non-ice cream reasons this week.
Yeah, they actually have an app available now where you can order ice cream and have it delivered. But the Sanepid, so like the institution that takes care of like health and safety, the one here in Krakow said like, well, no, the app doesn't actually have the proper names for these products. Because, for instance, Loot, the way it's spelled in Good Loot, isn't spelled properly in Polish. It's spelled in a way to kind of rhyme with good. So there,
even though it doesn't, but okay,
it doesn't. But it's one of those things where you have to know both languages and be very.
So it's a play on words, and the idiot government is saying that because this play on words means that nobody who orders it knows what they're getting.
Even though they're and they basically said like this is not in line with laws that say that.
Are you sure you've got this the right way around? Is it the Lud that they're arguing with, or the good?
I would argue with both. Yeah, good point.
No, it was with the Lud. So it's basically saying it's like nowhere is the product actually named as in like ice cream. It's just always this Lud, which is misspelled instead of Lud.
So we're about cheating consumers here?
It's about cheating consumers or misinformed consumers, or consumers won't know what they're ordering. So Good Loot appealed this and went to a judge, and the judge basically said like, yeah, people who are downloading this app know what they're looking for. they know the play on words, and there are pictures that kind of explain what this is. So
Yeah, pretty clear.
Do you get crab sticks in Poland?
crab sticks?
Yeah, and you know what crab sticks are? Do you have them in the US?
Imagine.
I mean,
Like fish sticks with crab meat?
Yeah, in the UK, I don't know if they're called this anymore, but you can get these things, and they look like a sort of about the size of an index finger, pink kind of thing that smell and taste roughly crabbish, but it's just kind of like just a fish stuff bound together, and
It's like 5% crab meat or something like that. It's like, yeah, no, they have that. I've gotten that in sushi places here where they say they have crab, but they use it's not called a crab stick. It's like suri. I think that's what.
Well, I think there was an issue in the UK about this, about using the word crab in something that isn't a crab.
Kind of like how there are, you go to an American supermarket, there are products that legally cannot spell cheese the proper way. They have to spell it with a Z because it contains no actual cheese.
It's like, well, my fish fingers have no fingers in them.
I do think that's fascinating about American food, the number of things that kind of like are actually nothing at all.
You cannot spell it like that because that's not what it is.
Bacon
That was
bits.
the thing of like feta cheese in Europe right now, of like the EU basically saying it can only be feta if it's actually from that area.
More like Parma ham and that kind of thing.
It's like
staying with Good Lood for a second. As you mentioned, Dr. Mike, they deliver, and I've seen this delivery car. Actually, it is a car too. A couple of times around town. I'm curious about this because I think for me, I don't know about you guys, there's a certain amount of guilt associated with food delivery. You're basically saying, I'm too lazy to make something. I'm too lazy to get dressed and step across the street. And I just want you to bring it to me. Okay, socially, culturally, we've come to accept that. All right, it's all right. But ice cream, you're so goddamn lazy and gluttonous maybe that you need your ice cream delivered to you. What does that look like? It doesn't melt on the way either.
This is the same product that on the one hand we've got people who are willing to stand in line for an interminable period to buy.
Maybe.
And then these same people are too goddamn lazy to stand in line for... Yeah, okay.
There's something about, it's not Good Lood, the brand, and their ice cream, which sucks, by the way. It's just the idea of ordering ice cream to be brought to your door. I think that's just admitting that you've given up on life.
The first time I ever experienced or saw this was when I was in like Argentina 10 years ago.
What, ice cream delivery?
Yeah, they did ice cream delivery there. It was a huge thing. They did ice cream delivery and ice cream to go. We went to an ice cream place, and when it's ice cream to go, it's not like you get a cone. You get a box, and it's styrofoam, and they you buy it like 2 liters of whatever. And they had guys on like scooters and mopeds that would just basically jump on the moped and drive off to whoever had ordered ice cream. And that was like a thing there.
Well, a great British institution, of course, is the ice cream van.
I miss the trucks. Yeah.
And,
Yeah, but aren't those individually wrapped things inside a refrigerated space? I mean, they're kind of like it's like it's brought to you, but they're individually wrapped. I mean, you can't individually wrap the ice cream. Can you?
Well,
do you?
No, they just put it in a box that's like, chilled or whatever, like styrofoam or something like that, and send it off like that. Just like when you buy ice cream at Tesco or whatever and drive it home, it's not individually packed. It's like
in a container, though.
It's in a container, yeah, and they just put it in a container that's prepackaged or something.
I don't know. There's something about ordering ice cream that
I know. It does feel weird. When I saw it in Buenos Aires for the first time, it seemed odd, but...
Look at you name dropping. City dropping. When I was in Buenos Aires...
I was on my way to Baku.
My butler brought me some ice cream. Anyway, Good Lood. Yeah, I'm sure somebody listening strongly disagrees with us on the subject of Good Lood because obviously, as Josh says, half the city seems to stand in line for it. But it just blows my mind. I just do not get the popularity of Good Lood. Don't.
I'll go to Good Lood if I'm in the mood and it's there, but I'm not going to wait.
You made a rhyme.
Good Lood mood.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that. But I'd rather just, if there's a queue there, I'll just go to the convenience store and buy a Magnum or something like that.
Oh, Magnum, the one where every advertisement is basically a metaphor for a blowjob.
I never noticed that. If you mentioned it, now I can't help it.
Every single advertisement they have it's a subtle, not so subtle. Yeah, it's there. Anyway.
Is that the one with the moustache?
No. The blood red lipstick, the close-ups.
Oh, I'm thinking of Magnum PR.
And that's why, we gladly pay, 12 zlotys or whatever it is for one of those damn things. But anyway, let's move on to...
Wipe your chin, bitch.
Let's move on. Oh, God, Dr. Mike had to go there. Where are we? Oh, Wrocław, great city, beautiful city, fantastic place. If you've been there, you know that they have a very clever what is it called? Clever,
like kind of self-marketing, like
yeah,
an emblem.
They have gnomes, little gnomes, positioned all over the city. By the way, is there some connection between gnomes and Wrocław, or is it just?
There is something historically there, but you didn't.
But we couldn't be bothered to look it up. Okay, anyway.
Is the Polish word krasnal? Is it like midgets or yeah?
It's they use that word as well for like short people, dwarves, stuff like that. It's like this is the whole fantasy aspect.
It's a very kind of you're never really sure what are the right words to use these days.
Little people.
Yeah, short.
Anyway, they're all over the city. Some are very easy to find in high traffic areas. Others are these little nooks and crannies, back streets of the city. Very, very cool idea. Anyway, Krakow is going to shamelessly copy Wrocław, except in keeping with our city symbols. It's going to be instead of gnomes or little people, it's going to be dragons. The city has approved this plan to position we don't have a fixed number, but we're going to have a good significant number of little dragons placed all over the city. Great for tourism. The kids love it. Just very cool generally. We did learn, speaking of numbers, they're going to cost 30,000 zlotys each. Now, I know nothing. Josh, you might know something about this. I know nothing about the casting process of was it bronze? I don't know. What are they made of?
Brass.
Brass. I know nothing about the casting process. I'm sure it's more expensive than you think. 30,000 does seem like quite a bit for, what are they, about 30 centimeters tall maybe in Wrocław?
Smaller, yeah.
Well, I think it probably
like
is just a kind of like, like the aggregation of all the different costs involved. You've got to presumably pay the sculptor to design and do the thing. It's then got to be produced. It's then got to be fixed in the ground or the wall,
anchored,
sufficiently strongly so that some light-fingered ne'er-do-well doesn't make off with
I suspect that they're going to have to humanize them, because part of the charm of the Wrocław gnomes is that they're doing different things, mischief, and they're sleeping, they're drunk, they're laughing, they're whatever.
Holding up signposts somewhere.
So the dragons are going to have to be humanized to make them cute,
flaring their wings.
No, more than that, make them cute and doing human stuff.
Fire also?
I guess. Yeah. But I think it's a good idea, even though we are, copying Wrocław for sure. I kind of like it.
I think it's quite an endearing concept. As you walk around town, then you turn a corner, and then at some signpost, there's like a little magic dragon holding up that signpost or pushing.
Sort of related. Do you remember? I haven't seen him for years now. There used to be a guy who would spend his days wandering around the main square wearing a bright green dragon costume, and then usually later in the day he'd have removed the head and be holding a pint or something.
Yeah.
You're a very friendly guy, actually.
And it ruined the fantasy, didn't it, when you see him drinking?
But yeah, you wonder.
Disneyland, it's like they can take out.
What I like about Wrocław as well is that, like I said, they have them in the places you expect to see them. They're all over the Rynek and the main streets. But then you get off the beaten path and you'll see them in very surprising places as well. And they're not always they're not always in the obvious places on a corner. Sometimes they're in like a recessed doorway, and you do need a map to find them all. And unless you live there and walk the streets.
Because it was kind of one. Of course, I should have looked all of this up, and can't be too late. But it was basically one guy's little pet project, wasn't it? I think he was like someone who was in
Wrocław.
Yeah.
Oh, I imagine so.
But I think there's much more than the original. I think there was, it was like 50 or 60 done originally, but I think there's many, many more than that, because there's been sort of newer additions.
Well, very cool idea. I'll be looking forward to that. I think it's next year we can expect to see them. And, I'm sure we'll do a show specifically on the location of the Krakow Dragons when they start popping up all over the place. Let's move on to Josh and Dr. Mike's favorite subject, which is getting drunk and drinking. What? Guys, this week, when you were in Buenos Aires, did you have a few drinks, maybe?
I resent the education.
Suggestion to the city government to change the regulations around where you can consume alcohol outdoors. Right now, of course, it's restricted to cafes and restaurants with designated outdoor areas, and you're not supposed to take your beer beyond those areas.
Basically the law in Poland, yeah.
Yeah, no park benches, anything like that. But with the summertime upon us, and with so many people who go to the what's it called in Polish? The boulevard, or the area.
Boulevard, like the embankments by the river.
The embankments on both sides of the river, especially on the Wawel side of the river. People want to have a beer, and they need the law to change to allow them to do that. Otherwise, you get busted by the man. Guys, what do you think about the idea that we should be allowed to drink in public in more places, especially for example, by the river in the summertime?
I like the idea because for me it's so natural. It's like a nice day. You go out there for a picnic. You take a sandwich or a grill, and you pull out a can of beer or a bottle of wine with friends, and if you're calmly and in a kind of presentable way, just enjoying yourself, I think that's completely acceptable and fine. I think the problem here in Krakow is that they're proposing that only a small area will allow drinking outside near Salvator. So yes, that embankment from like Jubilat by the Wawel Castle and a little bit north,
down to where the path ends. It goes uphill to
exactly. And I think
Street.
The problem is if you only allow one place to permit drinking outside, then that's going to be the place where everybody goes. If it was generally allowed everywhere within reason, then I think it wouldn't be a big deal. For me, it's like if it's the middle of summer and I'm in the Rynnik with a plastic cup outside with a beer, and I'm not puking or screaming, then what's the problem? Because there are people outside on like Saturday nights, 3 a.m, who don't have a beer in their hand, but they definitely need to be picked up by somebody soon and, have a baton in their face. And for some reason, there's no laws against that. So, but a guy, it's a Saturday afternoon, it's a picnic atmosphere, and you have a cold beer, you can't do that here in Krakow unless you're in a designated zone or something like that.
I think it's just, it's one of these things where it's rather than, spend public finances on enforcing, laws about behaviour in public, you just say, well, you're not allowed to drink in these places. And then, so theoretically, because people who aren't drunk aren't going to do bad things, so bad things don't happen.
I'm against this measure, Josh, because as you just mentioned, we have rules against, bad behavior, and this is begging for bad behavior. Because if you change the rule and you allow public drinking, well, that's all well and good, but the laws against public drunkenness are still going to be there. Yeah. And so instead of busting people for having an open container, the police are going to have to get into matters. Okay, are you drunk? How much have you had? What's your behavior like? Take this sobriety test, that kind of thing.
Well, no, because what it really should be, I know that you are probably right, but what it really should be is that it doesn't matter if you're drunk, but if you do something...
But it does matter if you're drunk.
But if you harm somebody, that
No, but even if you're happy, funny drunk, it's still public drunkenness.
For me, it's like if you're being loud and obnoxious to the point where other people notice it, I think that's more than enough for somebody to rein
But why even allow things to escalate to that level by allowing the public drinking? That's the question. Why take the risk?
It's a matter of freedom. It's like you can do what you want, but if you know that you by drinking will become either to some extent, say, aggressive or just annoying to everybody, then you shouldn't be drinking that.
Yeah, but as there's so many things, the tiny minority is going to ruin it for everybody. The people who are excited about the fact that they can drink in public are going to get drunk and do stupid things. You still have kids out there. I think this is just asking for trouble.
I think we already have trouble right now anyway, because people get drunk when they're inside and then they go outside walking around anyway drunk.
The more people will get drunk outside.
I don't think it's going to really change.
You make it legal, you're going to get more of it. It's obvious.
I don't know if it's going to make more of it, except the fact that it's concentrated in one area now. So people are going to go get drunk in one area.
And do you trust hundreds of people, for example, to clean up after themselves after 6 or 8, 10 cans of beer?
I don't trust them to do that with their cans of Coke, let alone beer. So it's not an issue.
Do you think people are going to clean up after themselves if you allow them to drink cans of beer by the river? I don't think so.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're doing something wrong, it doesn't matter if you're drunk or sober or not. It's like get a baton in the face and pay for your mess.
Yeah, exactly. You don't leave litter. That's a clear...
Unenforceable. I think we've all heard comments from people, tourists who've come here from places like Prague, where drinking in public is fully legal, or at least much more than it is here. Public parks, that kind of thing. And, they're surprised. They have a drink in public, not because they're, renegades trying to break the law. They really genuinely think they're not doing anything wrong, right up until the moment when the police walk up and
my argument is you're not doing anything wrong until you're doing something that bothers or is obnoxious to somebody else. So how many times have I been in, say, a quote unquote public place grilling and everybody has a beer there, or we share a bottle of wine? It's more along the lines of don't get caught, not that we're doing anything.
I think when I hear public drinking, I think of the Planta here, because you see people all the time in the summertime kind of try to sneak a beer, looking left and right, watching out for the cops. I don't think of the river, although it makes sense. People do go there, but the same rule. If it's okay to drink by the river, it would have to be okay to drink in the Planta, right?
Exactly. And I think that's the main problem with this suggested new law change, is that they're only going to allow it in one area. And the argument being, it's like, we want one large area where Straßenmäßig, the police can observe if nothing's going wrong. So we want one place where it's visible.
Keep it concentrated.
Exactly. And I think, no, that's just going to make more problems then. Yeah.
Tricky issue. Well, right now it's just a proposal, just an idea. No idea if it's going to be considered in time for the summertime or if it's going to be approved. We'll keep an eye on it, but it is an interesting topic for sure. One more thing before we wrap stuff up today. Interesting, maybe even shocking news from the local sports scene. Wisła Kraków, the legendary, historic club, one of the biggest clubs in the country, relegated from the Ekstraklasa, which is the top football league. They're going to go down a league next year because they came second to last. They had a lifeline, I think, even as late as with 2 matches to go. Mathematically, they were still in it. But then they lost an away match, which sealed their fate.
So like a third league.
Yeah. No. It's the same league, but a team they should have beaten. And for the first time...
Presumably you could say that for like the majority of the teams in the Ekstraklasa, but bizarrely they didn't manage to beat most of them, did they?
For the first time in 26 years, they're going to be in the second league.
They're going to be in the first league because...
well, it's called League One, but yeah, the second highest league in the country. Completely humiliating for the club, but given the turmoil they've been through over the last several years in terms of the ownership, in terms of just the drama, which we've talked about extensively on our show, it's kind of not surprising. And some people would say it's kind of what they deserve, maybe what they need to get kind of like...
The question is, how is this going to impact their meth sales?
Yeah, how is this going to affect their, various criminal activities? Who
also,
knows?
there'll be no Holy War next season.
But the joke now is that, they're going to have by far the most luxurious stadium in their league. We're talking about, they're going to play against teams that are in towns of 50,000 people.
So they're a bit like Sunderland then, I suppose.
Kind of like Sunderland, yeah. Like, legendary club, the stadium to prove it, but playing in the wrong league. I wonder, I don't know how it works in the Polish league with, financially, but I'm sure it's a major, major hit in terms of television revenue, in terms of the revenue from the Polish Football Association. I guess they're going to have to get rid of lots of players. As you know, Josh, it's a vicious cycle. You can't afford to stay in the league, so you have to get rid of your players, and you can only get the players you can afford, which means that you're looking at
yeah. I don't know if the
Polish
even
further.
Football League has a parachute system. Like in the UK, if you get relegated from the Premier League, you get like a bunch of cash to help you tide things over in the lower leagues.
Well, as I said, complete humiliation. Go to their Wisła Krakow's Facebook page and read some of the comments there. You see some very, very colorful language describing the situation in the club. And yeah, if you're not familiar with them, it's kind of, it would be like one of the giants of the English or Italian or Spanish or German leagues. Just getting relegated down the league. It doesn't fit. You think of Wisła Kraków and you think of top league, competitive with the biggest teams. It wasn't so long ago they were competitive in Europe, or at least semi-competitive in Europe, at least participating in European competitions at least. And now they're going to be playing away to, as I said, these tiny towns that attract a few hundred people to matches. It's just bizarre. But, well, we're going to make that our ending point for today's episode. We covered a lot of ground, a lot of bad words in our episode today, actually. A lot of bad words.
Lewd.
Yeah, lewd.
It was a very lewd episode.
Yes, absolutely. KrakCast.pl is the site. Of course, check out all of our back episodes, more than 400 episodes there. Let us know what you think about Good Lood or any number of the other topics we talked about today. What did we talk about today? The gypsy cunts and private dormitories and Good Lood and Zakrzówek. And drinking outside. A weird episode today, but interesting. Okay, well, anyway, on behalf of Dr. Mike and Josh, thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next time on the KrakCast.